Guys, welcome back to How to Buy a Home in New York, the series. And today we have step number 9, what to expect during your home inspection and the 8 additional tests that you may or may not need. So let's jump right in. Now, I know waiving your inspection contingency for your offer does make your deal seem a lot better. However, it's probably not something I would advise unless you for sure know what you're doing and can inspect the home on your own. So let's begin. The inspector's job is basically to check the house from top to bottom and everything inside. That means they'll be looking at the roof, they'll be looking at the foundations, they'll be checking the appliances such as refrigerators, dishwashers, they'll be checking running water in the bathtubs, they'll be flushing toilets, they'll check the AC, they'll check the heat. They're going to check everything possible that's designated to them as a home inspector. Now, the 8 additional tests you might need are as follows. Number 1, a radon test. Number 2, a water test. Number 3, if you have an oil tank, you're going to need an oil tank test. Number 4, a septic test. Number 5, the house has a chimney, you're going to want a chimney inspection. Number 6, lead-based paint. Number 7, if the house has any asbestos, you'll want somebody that can check that. Number 8, a pest inspection. So that's the SparkNotes version. I gave you all 8 tests back to back. Now I'm going to go into detail. So if you feel you've learned enough, feel free to go to the next video. If not, stick around. If you're shopping or you need assistance now, then please click the Calendly link down below to schedule a 15-minute call with myself or a member of the team. And if you're tired of Realtor, Trulia, and Zillow and blah, 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 then go ahead, click the link for my app below. It's free and it works in every state around America. So diving a little more into detail. The way I look at home inspections is very simple. It's not really a pass or fail. It's just like a health score. So think of it as the same way you would a physical that you get for yourself personally. How's everything? How's your blood pressure? How's your sugar levels? How's your weight? You know, things like that. So when I look at the inspection report, I'm just looking for, okay, what's wrong with the house? What's right with the house? And are the things that are wrong replaceable? So starting outside, the 2 major components of the house are going to be the roof and the foundation. Moisture is the devil, and you don't want the devil in your house, do you?
Who that? Who in my house?
I'm the devil. Who's asking?
The devil is not welcome here.
So the home inspector, when they're outside of the home, they're going to be looking for signs of wear and tear. Ideally, they're looking for any signs of moisture penetration into the home, whether that's from loose shingles, bad flashing, chimneys that need to be repaired, whether that's cracked foundations, whether that's gutters that are not draining properly away from the house. Again, your inspector wants to make sure that before you move in, the home is nice and dry. Because if it's not, I can tell you from personal experience in my home, okay, moisture is annoying and it's extremely difficult to get rid of if you have it. Now, as soon as we get to the inside of the home, what the inspector is going to do right away is get the appliances going. Ideally, we want that stuff to be going on in the background while we're checking out other parts of the home, just so we're saving you time, because on average, these inspections can take 2 to 3 hours. So now that we have all the appliances running, basically, we can move on to the next portion of the house, and always the scariest portion of the house, and that's usually the basement. And why is that scary? Well, that's where the heart of the home usually is. So you have your heating systems, your AC systems. If you have oil or gas, you have your burners down there. So everything is usually located in the basement. Now, these are usually the most costly items to get fixed. So ideally, we want to make sure everything's on the up and up. If it's not, then there may be some room to negotiate later on. The other thing that's found in the basement typically is the electrical panel. Again, the inspector wants to make sure that the house has enough electric for what you're powering. A lot of these homes are really old and they don't have the electric that's needed to come into the house to power a lot of the appliances that we have today. Okay, so most people are going to have washing machine, dryers, dishwashers, refrigerators. They're going to be running TVs, Xboxes, PlayStations. You got your laptops charging. You got all these devices that are drawing in a lot of power that you might have not had. Actually, I can guarantee you didn't have those items in the 1900s because, well, a lot of them didn't even exist. And now to jump into the 8 additional tests you might need. And the first one up is radon. Radon is a radioactive gas that forms naturally when uranium, thorium, or radium breaks down in bedrock. Releases this gas, it comes up into the house. Now, if the house has a high level of radon, All you got to do is mitigate it. Basically, they install some type of device that allows the gas to escape outside of the home. Very simple process, but again, it is a leading cause of lung cancer, so something you do want to get checked out. Second test is a water test. So if the house has a well, you definitely want a water test. The other reason you would want a water test, even if you have city water, is to just make sure there's no contaminants that are going through your drinking water. Again, a lot of these houses are old and they have old piping. So the last thing you want is some of that piping to be breaking down that you can't see by the naked eye, and now you're going to drink that stuff. Third test, if the house has an in-ground oil tank, you definitely want this to get checked. Why? Well, the last thing you want to do is buy a house that has a tank that's been leaking oil into the ground, and now you got to replace that and fix it. So my recommendation, get the oil test done. I can already save you the suspense and tell you that the majority of in-ground tanks, especially the old ones, are going to fail the vacuum test. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that the tank is leaking oil into the ground, but it does mean that there's not enough pressure in the tank. Fourth test, pest inspection. If you see mice droppings, rat droppings, if you see wood that's been damaged and it looks like it's coming from termites or something like that, then it's a really good idea to have a pest inspector come in and just take a look. Fifth test, septic. If the house has a septic, you can get it tested. The majority of people, what I find is they don't clean out their septic tanks, and they don't realize it needs to be cleaned out until one day it happens to back up into the house. And that's when people will realize, oh wow, I didn't clean my septic tanks. Some sellers do regularly get their septic tank pumped. If that's the case, instead of spending money on the test, you could always ask for if they have any reports that showed that they got this stuff cleaned out. Again, why spend the extra money if the seller can provide you reports? Now, if you still want to do it just to be on the safe side, well then it's something you can get done. Next up, chimney inspection. If the house has a fireplace, you are actively putting a fire. Fire has fumes and toxins that are released. Now, ideally, they go right up the chimney, right out the house. However, again, like with many things, a lot of owners don't regularly clean out their chimney. This is something I highly recommend. And then after you close on the house, I would also hire somebody that does chimney sweep. So just have them come clean it out. This way you can make sure when you're lighting that fire, wintertime, on those cold nights, you don't want the fire and the gases to be coming into the house. You want them to go outside of the house, okay? So protect your family, protect yourself, get a chimney inspection. Next up, lead-based paint inspection. And I can save you the trouble because any house that's built before 1978, I can almost personally guarantee you that they all have lead paint. Why? Because lead was used in paint. And since most people don't sand down their walls before they get it painted, they just paint right over it, nice, cheap, cost effective, there's going to be lead paint behind it, okay? So houses built before 1978, you don't need to get this inspection because I can tell you there is already lead paint. So just make sure, don't eat the chips, don't inhale the dust, and you'll be good to go. And the last one, and this is like that buzzword that when people hear, they're like, oh my God, no way. Asbestos. It's serious, but not that serious. Okay? And what do I mean by that? Asbestos was commonly used in pipe wrapping. So you will find old remnants of asbestos around old pipes, especially if they haven't been changed in a long time. So the rule of thumb with asbestos is, number one, as long as you don't touch it and make it airborne, it's considered safe. Number two, if you do get it removed, do not do this by yourself, okay? Again, anytime you disturb the asbestos, you have the ability to expose, they're like hooks, okay? They're gonna go into the air, and what sucks about this is the hook will lodge itself in your lung, and it doesn't come out. So if you have any type of wrapping and you're unsure what it is, you want to have an asbestos inspection. Now, the belief about asbestos is that you can tell that it is asbestos by the naked eye, but that is not true. The only way to confirm whether it is asbestos or not is for somebody to look at it under a microscope. So your typical home inspector is not qualified to guarantee that that is asbestos. Guys, when you're buying your house, It's very important to make sure that everything is either in working condition, and if it's not, you know about it. You also want to make sure that structurally the house is sound, and if it's not, what it's going to cost you to fix. And the other thing you want to make sure is that it's healthy to move into this house. So I don't ever recommend to waive your inspection. And I do recommend that if your house does need additional testing, just get it done. Okay, sure, yeah, you got to spend money, but this is the biggest asset you're buying and you're living in it. So I don't think you want to move into a house that's going to fall down tomorrow. And as usual, if you want to be notified when step number 10 comes out, how to execute your buyer's contract and what to expect, go ahead, subscribe, hit the bell, and I shall see you here next time. Toodles!